Hello everybody, I'm Junia Doan. This is Uncommon Sense. Thank you for joining us. My guest, Bo Brines, is the owner of Little Forks Outfitters, an Orvis dealer in downtown Midland. He is an avid fly fisherman and specialty retailer. He earned a certificate from Berklee College of Music in Boston and plays drums in a local band. This guy's got range, right? Welcome, Bo.
Thank you for having me,
Tell me
Junia.
about your store. Who is your customer? What do you sell?
I sell all sorts of things. The core sport is fly fishing tackle, and we do classes and schools and destination travel. So as an interesting outdoor endeavor, fly fishing has a lot of different facets. So over the years, and I've been there since 1995, so this is, I guess we're coming up on 17 years. And seen a lot of changes in downtown Midland in that time. We've made a lot of good progress. But as the business has evolved, I've added several different lines. I sell a lot of outdoor footwear now, so I carry Merrell, Keen, UGG, Chaco, Teva sandals. I also sell Patagonia, Ex Officio, Lowly. Got a lot of great outdoor brands. So I've just basically built the business as we've gone along, finding the things that, first of all, excite me. So basically I'm just indulging my own interests and finding the things that I think are exciting. And second of all, finding quality brands that have not really been well represented in our market. So it's been a really interesting journey.
And you have a retail background.
I do. My first passion was music, and when I was in high school, I was pretty sure that I was going to be a rock star. So that was my first love, and I was totally consumed by it and spent all my waking hours practicing and performing. And I spent some time on the road as a young man in my 20s, and in the mid-'80s, my father, who had an office products business, he came to me and said that he was thinking about retiring, and I was at a point, being a musician on the road, where it was starting to wear on me. That's a pretty tough life.
Yes, it is.
So we were mainly playing in clubs and whatnot, so we never really broke into the actual music industry. So when I came back to work with my father in the family business, Bo Brines Office Supply, that we had that business for almost 30 years, and it was a mainstay in the community. And when I came back to work for him, I, as a young man, never thought that I'd enjoy the office products business, but I found as an adult that there were lots of avenues for creativity, and my dad pretty much stepped back, and over the next 15 years we really grew that business nicely, and I had a lot of fun doing it, and found that it was an endeavor that I could really sink my teeth into. So I enjoyed the business aspect of it, and the products we were selling I didn't really have that much passion for. So having found out that I enjoyed the entrepreneurial experience, I started kind of looking around for some other ways that I could have that entrepreneurial experience, but also maybe wrap something in that I had some other passions for. And when I stopped playing in the bands, I had really kind of replaced all of that passion with my fly fishing, and I had been doing a lot of trout fishing and fishing for salmon and steelhead here in Michigan. I started traveling a lot. I have a background of spending a lot of time in the American West too. As a high schooler, I spent my summers wrangling horses in Colorado. So
you are amazing.
I did that for 4 summers. So I love the mountains. I love the whole Western experience. And when I started traveling out west, fly fishing, I started seeing some of these people that were running fly shops and building outdoor lifestyle businesses around the fly tackle business. And it just looked like something that could be doable back here. And around that time, this is by now it's like the mid 90s, like early 93, 94, and Robert Redford
Right.
produced and directed the film version of A River Runs Through
Yes.
It. And the fly fishing universe just kind of exploded, and fly shops started popping up everywhere, and it was very popular. So there was a huge amount of interest in fly fishing at that time. And downtown Midland was also, they were looking at ways to stage a
Yeah.
resurgence down there. And of course, Carl Gerstacker was involved in the DDA in its infant stages. And one of the things that they identified as the perfect sort of business that would kind of embody that specialty retail, high-end quality, they identified, Carl by name said, "We need an Orvis dealer downtown Midland." And I heard that as a business person and kind of went, And about that time, I met the Orvis regional business manager. And, and he was actively looking at markets that they thought would sustain a viable Orvis dealership. And Midland was on the list because they had done, with their internet and catalog operations, they had done a lot of market research and knew where fly shops or Orvis dealers would work. And they had actually had a few people take a pass at it. You know, there had been some business plans that had been submitted, but they hadn't really decided on anyone to open it. But I started looking at that and thinking about it seriously. And there were a couple other things that came together. John Van Dalen, who ultimately became my shop manager for 16 years, he had been working at the community center, and they experienced some downsizing. So here's John is an incredibly gifted, and he's an outdoorsman and fly fisherman par excellence. You know, there are different tiers of instructors, and I am a basic fly casting instructor as issued by the Federation of Fly Fishers. John is not only, he's a couple levels above me, he's on the board of governors that define all of the...
There are really tests that you have to take
Absolutely.
at several levels?
Absolutely, yeah. The basic test is not only a written exam, but also a performance exam. You have to be able to demonstrate not only be able to demonstrate the cast, but be able to work with someone and fix whatever flaws or imperfections they may have in their casting style. And then there are different levels above that. There's a master casting instructor, and then the board of governors. And John, being a board of governors member, was a real find for me as a shop manager for my new fly fishing business. So with him in place, I still was working in the family office products business at the time. In the first 5 years that Little Forks Outfitters was open, I was also still running the
Yeah.
office products business. So it was an interesting period. And we had young kids at the time too, so it was pretty
risk
crazy.
taker. You're really a risk taker, aren't you?
Sometimes it would appear so. I get these ideas, and it seems really obvious to me that it's going to work, and I never look back. So, but yeah, I guess it was kind of risky, but here we are, and it's
When
worked
you
out
have an
pretty well.
experience like that, where you just see it and do it, does it come to you in pictures?
Kind of in. I saw the fully fleshed thing, you know, right out of the gate, and I had the benefit of seeing some of the shops out west that were already doing what they're just. Most people, when I opened the fly shop here, thought, "Boy, is there enough of a market for that?"
Yeah.
And there is, as long as I'm opening doors to all the other things that go with it, you know, like the Merrill shoes and Keen sandals and Patagonia clothing. All of those brands have a strong connection to fly fishing, but they also open me up to people that may never want to cast a fly rod. And when someone's looking for a nice retirement gift or Christmas.
Yeah,
we do a wonderful business at Christmas time because our value proposition is we have quality products. I mean, pretty much everything that I carry is some of the best that's available.
What makes for a good salesman? What do you have to do to work with
Empathy.
Empathy.
Absolutely, yeah. What I look for in people to work in the shop, if they truly want you to be happy, that's the main thing. And in my business, I need some knowledge of the
Product.
fly tackle side of things. It's pretty crucial, and it's hard to teach that in a short time. But that empathetic, the ability to want people to be happy and to be able to talk to anyone that comes in the door, even if you don't know everything about a certain product, if you're getting along with that person, they're going to give you the leeway to go find out what it is they need to know. And that's, to me, I think that's the crucial thing.
Now, when you're a teacher, what skills do you have to have as a teacher?
Teaching is interesting because the teaching side of things it's a pretty cumulative process. In getting certain concepts to click with different types of personalities is something that you really develop over years of working with lots of different people. And there will be, like teaching fly casting, there are little devices that I've learned. And first of all, you need to know what to look for to correct.
Yeah.
So that's the first step. But then getting people, you essentially need to trick them into being successful so that they can feel what it feels like to do it correctly. So depending on what style of caster you are, for instance, we have a lot of people that will come to us that have been traditional fishermen,
Yes.
like spin cast or bait casting, and the whole concept of fly fishing, in a nutshell, the difference between fly fishing and traditional styles of angling, the spin cast and bait cast rods,
Yes.
they're using heavy lures.
Yes.
So you need something that's weighted, whether it's a bobber or the lure itself or some split shot. You need something that has some weight. And you reel that in close to the rod tip, and then with one motion, you load that rod,
Yes.
stop it, releasing the bail, and that weighted lure shoots out there with a skinny line sailing behind it, and you can throw it a long ways. But it's a motion of, you need to put all that energy into one forward motion, and then you stop it.
Yes.
Fly fishing, we're using
Oh my goodness.
flies that imitate, these are mostly trout
I'm
flies.
going to have you look at this later. But let's take out that bug.
These are pretty much all bugs. Well, there's a worm.
But the
in here.
concept is that you are mimicking what's in the water, and you're
Exactly.
going to float. You're going to send the line out, and it's going to float for a while, or does it drag?
Well,
in the
there
wa-
are some that float and there are some that sink, and
Okay.
depending on what we're trying to imitate. These flies that I brought along, I brought them along because they are quite small. So it just
Yes.
illustrates that what we're trying to cast is, in most cases, virtually weightless. This particular one has some synthetic materials on it, but historically, these flies are tied with bits of fur and feathers, and people will hunt particular
Now, do you
birds.
go after different fish because you could be in shallower waters, or rivers versus bays, or deep
Absolutely,
sea?
sure. Mhm.
What does this allow you to fish for? Fly fishing. What kinds of fish?
Pretty much any sort of fish. I just got back from Kiribati in the South Pacific. We took a group of 9
Where is
anglers.
this?
Christmas Island,
Christmas Island. Okay.
the Republic of Kiribati. It's Kiribati.
Thank
it
you
looks
for
like
teaching me that.
Kiribati, but it's the TI is pronounced S, so it's Kiribati. And it's an island
chain.
republic of, it's over a couple thousand miles. Tarawa is its capital. But there's this, Christmas Island is the world's largest coral atoll. And it's a 50-mile long network of all these saltwater flats that are full of bonefish and giant trevally and triggerfish and all these wonderful saltwater species, all of which we were fishing for with fly rods.
So how would you decide whether you wanted to do the one with bait that's heavy in the snap versus the fly fishing approach?
Some of it's totally situational. These particular flies, they imitate a number of different types of insects in their various life cycles, stages of their life cycles. So you need to imitate the stage of the cycle, the size of that bug, what the motion is, that sometimes it's the motion that's critical. So someone that wanted to fish for trout that were rising to an emerging insect hatch, they'd pretty much have to fly fish. Some of the others, the bonefish that we were chasing on Christmas Island, you could fish for those with conventional tackle. I think the fly rod is a perfect way to go after them because you do have a floating line, and those bonefish are very skittish, and they're up on the flats, that on the rising tide they come up on the flats and they're looking for shrimp and little crabs. So they're just kind of cruising around. They're very nervous. They're at risk of predation from overhead and also from barracuda or the trevally that are cruising the flats looking to eat them. So with a fly rod, you can cast a fly that sinks in front of them, and then you strip it and make it look like a little creature that's trying to escape from them. You'd cast the fly, and then pulling the fly line, you could give that fly
a sense of motion.
Some motion, exactly. And it's that motion that attracts them. And they see something that's, to their eye, it's trying to escape them, and they're looking for food. So, they'll come over and pick up your fly.
Is there a time of day you would normally fly fish? The fish are...
It varies. There's, and that's one of the neat things about fly fishing, is that there's so much to learn that you can spend your entire life chasing whatever species you want to focus in on, but especially trout fishing. There are the insect hatches and the different locations where different bugs emerge, and each of the insects, the classic insect for trout fishing on a fly would be the mayfly. That's probably the most. Are you familiar with what a mayfly is? They look like little sailboats. But they come in many different sizes and colors.
Sounds like those June bugs.
and each of those mayflies will emerge in a narrow window at the same time every year. And they spend, most of them have a 1-year life cycle, so they'll emerge, like the Hendrickson is one of the mayflies that emerges early in the season. It's the first larger mayfly that emerges. So like on the holy waters of the Au Sable, that's a famous hatch. And they're a little bit larger mayfly than some others, and some of the bigger fish will eat them. But you know that it's going to be happening the end of April, the beginning of May, within a week and a half window, and they'll probably be emerging at 3 or 3:30 in the afternoon, and then there might be a spinner fall before dark. A spinner fall is when the adults that have emerged, they molt again and they come back and mate, and then the spinners fall on the river. And each of those are completely different profiles of fly, and if you had the wrong stage, they're not going to eat your fly. So it's really interesting to figure this out hatch by hatch.
So really, you really need to know a lot about the environment, the life cycle of bugs, the habits of the fish, right? The time of year.
Certainly.
That's a lot to learn.
It is, but that's what makes it
fun,
so
engrossing.
Cool. Exactly, because you never get to a point where, well, I kind of have that down.
But now you were a horse wrangler. Now what does a horse wrangler do?
I worked for a guy that was a professional hunter, and he had permits in the Lost Creek Wilderness area above, in the Tarryall Mountains. which is Pike National Forest outside Colorado Springs in Colorado. I spent 4 summers. The day school got out, I'd be on a plane, and I'd come back the day before school started, spend my entire summer in the mountains. And in the summertime, they ran a dude ranch. Okay. So we had 45 to 50 head of horses that we'd need to feed and saddle and take people out on rides twice a day, or take pack trips up into the high country. You know, I'd do that for days at a time. And it was a great way to spend my summers, and I think it really helped me develop a lot of people skills, because you deal with all different sorts of people. Sometimes in trying environments, you know, if you get like a full-grown man who's in a rainstorm and he's like beside himself because he's wet, you know, it's you know, sometimes.
City slicker.
Well, yeah, and it's funny because you'd have some of the people that you might think, well, they might have, you know, if conditions get rough, they might be a challenge, and they might surprise you. You know, they'd be troopers. And sometimes, yeah. So, but that was a great experience, and interestingly enough, the place I worked at is on a trout stream that, as an adult, I have revisited that area a lot, and it's one of my favorite places to fish. So it's a really rich experience because I have all the memories of, you know, that time as a wrangler. But that's a great lifestyle. You know, up at
I can see you love it.
5:30 in the morning, you're out bringing all the horses in. You know, you'd keep a catch horse in and saddle up usually the fastest horse, so you get to just get out there and stretch his legs out and go find the horses, and that's a lot of fun.
Well, what I'm so interested in is that's more active than fly fishing. But before we talk about that, you brought a rod, and I wondered if you'd be open to teaching me a little bit about fly fishing.
Sure.
Demonstrate it.
Sure.
We'll see if I can get a little bit of it.
Well, and before we head over there, I set out to say, and I think I kind of got on a little tangent, but these light flies, obviously, we can't load a rod with the weight of this lure. So the difference between fly fishing and conventional tackle angling, the weighted lure is used in the bait casters, the spinning rigs, all that sort of thing. With fly casting, we're using a fly line that has the weight. So we develop casting strokes that load the rod using the weight of that fly line. And then we form loops with the fly line that straighten out and can present these flies that weigh nothing. You know, and we can cast, some of the flies we use are quite large. I should have brought some of those, and heavy. So some of the lines are clunky, heavy, sink. We'd use different styles of casting to.
Let us go do this. Bo, I understand there are different kinds of casting, but maybe you ought to start with the basic one.
Sure. The basic cast is the single-handed overhead cast, and the concepts that we apply, we need the rod tip to move in a straight line. We're going to drag the fly line through the air, loading the rod, and load it more and more deeply until we turn our wrist over at the end and release that energy, forming a loop in the fly line, and all that energy will travel out the loop and present the fly. And when you do it correctly, it looks much like this. You see the energy that's coming off that line?
I do.
And it's really quite easy to learn if you've got the basic concepts in mind.
You have to feel it.
You do have to feel it, and people that have done a lot of spin cast fishing, the whole concept of dragging the fly line, in spin cast you apply the energy quickly and abruptly.
You think you could teach it to me?
I think I probably could.
Okay.
Let's give
so
it a
grip,
try.
All right.
You've got a good grip to begin with, and you want to move in a plane that is essentially a flat plane.
Okay.
Here, let me just cast with you, and then you can see how it feels. It's a really delicate motion. Very good. See how that makes everything straighten out?
Well, thank you, Bo. That was a lovely experience. And I understand there's a manufacturer of fly lines in our community.
There is.
Who is that?
Scientific Anglers has been manufacturing fly lines in Midland, Michigan since the late 40s, I believe. After World War II, there were 3 individuals, Leon Martouche, Claire Harris, and I think Paul Rotiers.
And right now, aren't they the biggest in the world?
They are. They're the world's largest manufacturer of fly lines. I think most of the fly lines in the world are made in Midland. There are a few others in the world now, but it's a technology that many people don't know that that's right here in Midland.
All right. Thank you, Bo. Really appreciate the chance to learn a little bit about fly casting. But really what we've learned from Bo is attitude is everything. And if you can come to life, to your sales job, to your fly fishing, with an attitude of empathy, an attitude of service, an attitude of wanting to make the person happy, or understanding how your fish are biting and what they need, your life is richer, more successful, and I think you are more situated in the world. And selling is a little bit different from teaching, because he said you have to trick people, which is to say you have to speak their language in order for them to learn what they need to learn. So that's very good in our lives to make sure that we are speaking so that other people can understand what we're hoping they can learn from us or hear from us. So I thank you for watching, and please, please go out and do something nice for someone you know and someone you do not know today and every day going forward. I'd appreciate it. See you next time.
To contact Junia, send her an email at info@juniadone.com. For more information, program schedules, and news about future guests, go to www.juniadone.com. Thanks for joining us. See you next time for Uncommon Sense with Junia Doan.